program. No new gas supplies to Europe, just more new demands to get the fuel flowing. Ukraine now wants $700 million worth of gas for free for what it calls technical reasons, before it'll turn the pumps back on. Now we can get the latest from our correspondent Yegor Piskunov, who is monitoring the developments for us outside the Gazprom building here in Moscow. Good morning to you, Yegor. So talk us through those new reasons that Ukraine is putting forward this time.
Good morning, Marina. The gas crisis still continues. Many European countries remain without Russian gas. Russia says it's because Ukraine simply doesn't let Russian gas into its transit system, while Kyiv, despite all the previously signed agreements, continues to announce new conditions for Ukraine to transit Russian supplies through its territory to European consumers. At first, Ukrainian authorities said that they had rewired the Ukrainian transit system for domestic use and accused Russia of pumping gas into the wrong pipe and asked Russia to choose a different route. And now Ukraine's Naftogaz has sent to Gazprom a draft agreement in which it asks Russia to supply additional amounts of gas for Ukraine's technical needs, so that Ukrainian gas pumping stations would be able to pump gas through the system to European consumers. According to, if Russia was to supply these additional amounts of gas, it would cost Gazprom around $700 million just for the next 3 months, and all of this is despite the fact that the current contract between Gazprom and Ukraine's Naftogaz obliges Ukraine to purchase the gas that it uses for technical needs, either from Gazprom or from any other distributor. RT managed to get a copy of this draft agreement, and for more, here's this report by my colleague Alexandra Koshernitskaya.
So is it off or is it on? Moscow says the gas flows through Ukraine, but Ukraine doesn't let it pass to Europe. On the Ukrainian border with Hungary and Slovakia, EU observers are monitoring the supply.
The gas supplies to the station Uzhhorod yet have not been resumed.
Kyiv gives some reasons, then changes them. First, it cites technical difficulties like the wrong pipe, then not enough volumes to pump the gas. All claims dismissed by Gazprom. Now it wants Russia to send processed gas to secure the transit that was supposed to be guaranteed by Ukraine.
The only condition the Ukraine demands is to provide Naftogaz Ukraine with 360 million cubic meters of gas in January, 600 million in February, and another 600 million in March. All that amount for free.
I think the time of free gifts is over.
RT obtained a copy of the document from our sources in Ukraine.
According to this document, Naftogaz requests Gazprom to hand over 21 million cubic meters of gas daily if the Russian company wants transit to Europe resumed. In this quarter alone, that gas would cost up to $1 billion, and that is to provide Kyiv with gas for technological needs. Well, according to the present contract, it's Ukraine's responsibility to supply processed gas.
The Ukrainian side calls it a solution. The Russians say it's blackmail.
No one, none of the transit countries has the right to abuse its transit status or to make use of it and take European consumers hostage.
Europe doesn't care about the ebb and flow of Russian gas.
We would not like to clarify now who is right and who is wrong, because we are not interested in the Russia-Ukraine row. We are pressing Ukraine as well, and I have told the Ukrainian Prime Minister that Ukraine is losing the trust of its European partners.
Slovakia, Bulgaria and Moldova are now shivering, and the warm welcome for their leaders in Moscow hardly melted the ice. The Russian side says there are plenty of ways out, but there is not enough political will in Kyiv.
Our Slovakian colleagues have voiced an idea of gas swap deliveries. When Ukraine delivers gas to Slovakia from its underground storages and Russia compensates to Ukraine for the gas delivered. Gazprom says it is technically possible. So if our Ukrainian partners welcome this idea, we're ready to put it into practice immediately.
President Medvedev has called for an urgent meeting of consumer states in Moscow this Saturday. Gazprom insists it's not the crisis crisis of supply. It's the crisis of transit. Moscow says the tap is on, but as the gas flows in, it doesn't flow out. And it's the time for Kiev to switch on the gas. Alexandra Kasharnitska, RT, Moscow.
According to Ukrainian authorities, the Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko had a phone conversation with Vladimir Putin overnight in which they discussed the situation, and Yulia Tymoshenko allegedly said that Ukraine will pay for these additional amounts of gas needed for technical needs only after Moscow and Kyiv agree on a new gas price for Ukrainian consumers in 2009, which actually returns this whole situation to its starting point when Ukraine owed money to Gazprom for the gas it consumed in 2008, and the two sides couldn't agree on a new deal for the next for 2009.
Well, let's now talk about those who are at the far end of the pipes and what's been their reaction.
The head of the EU Commission, Jose Manuel Barroso, has said that this situation is unacceptable. He said that if Russia and Ukraine would not resolve this in the nearest future, then the countries that consume Russian gas, European countries that consume Russian gas, would start filing lawsuits and would go to court with this issue. And Russia says that it's also going to sue Ukraine for the losses that it has already suffered. And according to Gazprom's head, Alexei Miller, Gazprom has already lost more than $1 billion since it cut off supplies, accusing Ukraine of siphoning Russian gas, which was aimed at European consumers. And also Russia's President Dmitry Medvedev is calling for an international summit with European countries that consume Russian gas, also with Ukraine, to be held in the nearest future to discuss the situation and final solutions so that this crisis would finally end.
All right, Igor Piskunov, thanks very much for keeping us posted. You're watching RT, and the ongoing row with Ukraine has led some media sources to speculate that Moscow is using gas as a political weapon. RT's Katerina Zarova looks into the claims.
Pipeline politics. The dispute between Russia and Ukraine has resonated across the globe. Countries not affected in any way are nonetheless taking sides. And the headlines are not shy at pointing fingers.
Kremlin uses gas as a weapon. Russia's gas war. Russia is playing power games, so we must learn to power ourselves. Russia's Putin shows his true colors. Putin plunders Ukraine and EU.
A common theme is gas being used as a geopolitical weapon in Russia's power-hungry plans. But could that really be the case?
Well, it's hard to believe that Russia can use gas as a political weapon, because those who are anti-Russian by definition will continue to be anti-Russian in Ukraine. Those who support Russia will continue to support Russia. So I don't think that there is any specific political goal that can be achieved by using energy.
The geopolitical weapon argument falls apart when looked at in detail. What country has the worst relations with Russia at present? Answer: Georgia. While diplomatic relations have been cut off, the gas has not, and continues to flow regardless of the political environment.
Russia continued to supply gas to Georgia even in the tragic days of South Ossetia. Georgia decided to prevent supplies of Russian gas to South Ossetia.
The Baltic states, equally not Russia's closest pals, have a stable relationship with Moscow in the energy sector. All because they agreed on a transition period in which prices would gradually reach market level, having previously been subsidized as a legacy of Soviet times. They pay their bills on schedule, unlike Ukraine, which still seeks ways of avoiding payment. And it's not only Russia which says that Ukraine is playing games.
Ukraine uses gas as a political weapon in that sense that they are an important transit country. For sure, Russia tries to use the gas in order to put pressure on Ukraine, but everybody would do so. I don't see today a strategy of Russia in order to get Ukraine, more influence of Ukraine via the gas. I think this is completely impossible.
The international media, including in many countries not involved in or affected by the row, seems to have made up its mind that this is a political dispute. but others say this is simplistic and that essentially commercial differences underpin the row.
3 years ago when this first happened, when the pipeline was shut down, Europe came to a fairly simplistic conclusion that this is directed against Europe, that Russia is flexing its muscles and using energy as a weapon. Now I think there's a much better understanding that Europe is an innocent bystander and not the intended victim in this, that this is the result of an extended dispute between Russia and Ukraine.
But while many search for a bottom line to the situation, there are those who have simply reached rock bottom. Countries in the EU that have been affected by the spat no longer care about the politics, blame games, and myriads of explanations. They're simply tired of being left out in the cold. Slovakia, Bulgaria, and Moldova are those hit hardest by the lack of supplies. Close to violating their EU accession terms and restarting their nuclear reactors, their message is perhaps the clearest of all. We don't care what the problem is, we just want our gas. Katerina Azarova, RT, Moscow.